when you think of trust, right? In any kind of relationship, let's say, how do you overcome or rebuild that relationship if trust, you know, has become questionable?
Oh, that's a difficult um, difficult question. I think the way to overcome trust issues is to be honest and transparent and tell the reason for whatever we done, and then it wasn't honest. Just tell the reason why
Mm.
and take responsibility and tell how we gonna fix it, how we gonna build trust again.
I think I'm going to take out the word fix, and because very often it's not about fixing, I think what I found with trust and from working with different people is that when you've broken down a relationship, there's an element on both sides, but I think the person who has broken that trust agreement as such, I think that person needs to do some work on themselves. And I think if they're willing to do that work, they have to be willing to let go, let's say, of that situation, that maybe partner, business, relationship, work on themselves. And if they're working on themselves and their partner or significant other as such in whatever relationship could see that, and it might take time, then maybe there's that word you said, fix. I think there's that mending of something, but key things need to be touched on. And I think you've touched on it as well. But I know forgiveness needs to take place, and not so much the person who wants that relationship to just carry on, but the person who broke that trust, she, they have to decide to forgive themselves. They have to come to that. Until they can forgive themselves, that they need to do, be honest with themselves and be able to forgive themselves. And they need to be able to put that work in and work on themselves, right? Now, the thing here is that there is an element, I believe, where you have to be able to let go of the other person, the situation, and let them be, where there's space, anything could, allow for anything to happen, but work on yourself. Because I think what's happening here, and a lot of people miss this too, is that when you have broken something, trust, agreement, I think whether it's something lacking or something you need to, you're struggling with, you need to deal with that. Because if you go into another relationship, if you go into another situation, uh, you could have that same problem unless you work on yourself. So I think when there's a breakdown of trust, it's for that individual to really work on themselves and accept that something is lacking or something needs to be done, but we have a willingness to let go of the other person, let go of the situation as part of the price to pay, as part of the consequences. Your views?
Yes, if when it comes to personal relationship, I think there is always a reason why we, let's just say, we are not faithful, and it's important that the person who wasn't faithful to reflect on himself or herself, and then find out why he did that. If he's not happy, it can be he or she is not happy with himself or herself, and then it's nothing to do with the other person, because sometimes the other person can be perfectly fine. It's just we are lack of maybe self-love. Maybe we're looking for love because that wasn't fulfilled in our childhood.
Hmm. I like the fact that you touch on childhood too, because in all of my work in coaching, especially, what I've found is that there is a trend, what is be cultural as such, like you say, any parties, the person in relationship, what I found is that they, because they need to work on themselves, is that they tend to follow a pattern whether they might have seen something or grew up around something, what is in the household or such, is that they mimic what their environment, community as such. I mean, as a youngster, there were different things that's been drilled in my head and the guys I grew up around. And I can't think that that's right now, that that's right to do now. But I understood as time go by where it came from and why it was, you know, drilled in us and why we were taught that way. Parts of it is culture, part of it is just, you know, limited, I'll say limited thinking, I want to think. But I think a lot of things that we grew up with that was okay then, it's just not okay now. You know, especially if you respect yourself, especially if you respect other people, you just can't do the same things now. So I think when it comes to trust, it is a big topic, like we've explored before coming on here. But what I do know is that I think you really, really honed in on it where you said it's that person who's broken that trust, that person, he, she, they needs to take responsibility and work on themselves. And if the other person wants to carry on or choose not to, they have that freedom and they should be allowed to. But it's not to just let it be. It's that person who broke that trust, let's say, needs to do some work on it and themselves, because they will go into, say, another relationship with that aspect of themselves that, you know, cause that trust to be broken down. They'll probably just do it again. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's very important to rebuild transparency and then communicating honestly.
Well, I think before I jump off here, is what I'd like to, you know, the community to really look at is how do you rebuild trust then? That's the one person who's lacking as such. It might have been triggered by the other person. I'm not putting blame there, but how do you rebuild this trust if you decide, you know what, I'm going to forgive? What are your views on that? How do you rebuild that trust? How do you rebuild that trust? How do you rebuild that trust?
How do I rebuild that trust? First, I would have a conversation. I would like to find out the reason why, and then it depends which side I am, but definitely I would reflect on myself, on the relationship, and if I cannot resolve it with my partner or in a business, I would certainly have a third person who can see the situation from the outside. And in a partnership, I would consider couple therapy,